I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here writing this out, but here we are. I married Emily about 8 years ago. She seemed perfect at first, beautiful, sharp-tongued, confident, and seemingly committed to our life together. We had a kid, Ryan, who's now 10, and for years I thought we were solid. Sure, there were fights, but every couple has those, right? What I didn't realize was that beneath her sharp exterior, Emily had a pretty big streak of bitchiness and a habit of lying whenever it suited her. But I guess the biggest shock came when I started noticing little things, things I brushed off at first because I didn't want to believe the worst. It started a few months ago. Emily would come home late with excuses about work, but her stories didn't add up. She'd say she was at some office happy hour, then I'd catch her texting late at night, hiding her phone when I walked into the room. Her attitude was nastier than usual, snapping at me for the smallest things, and I noticed she was more secretive, more defensive. I told myself she was just stressed, maybe over work or the kid, but deep down I knew I should have paid more attention. I should have known she was hiding something. The real sign, the one that should have clued me in, was that she seemed to be acting distant, more interested in her phone, less interested in me, and definitely less interested in Ryan. Then there was the night I decided to check the phone myself. I'd seen enough red flags, late-night texts, her disappearing into the bedroom with her phone, and a strange, hurried tone when she'd talk on the phone. I waited until she was out at the store, then snuck into her jewelry drawer where she kept her phone charger. I grabbed her phone to see if there were any messages, anything that could explain her odd behavior. That's when I saw it, an entire string of texts from some guy named Mike, talking about how hot Emily looked, how much she loved the training sessions in the equipment shed at the baseball field. My stomach sank. I knew instantly what that meant. It wasn't just some flirtatious banter, it was something else. I looked through her messages. They talked about meeting up late at night, training, practicing, but it was clear enough that what was happening behind my back was way more than just a friendly get-together. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The worst part, the texts were filled with suggestive comments, and she kept lying about her whereabouts, saying she was working late or going to some book club. But the texts didn't lie. The security footage from the league's cameras, those were clear. The footage caught her sneaking into the equipment shed with Mike after hours. I saw her kissing him, touching him, and then going completely naked in that shed. When I confronted her about the texts, Emily's reaction was honestly mind-blowing. She didn't even try to deny it at first. She just looked at me with that cold, bitchy glare and said, "You're overreacting. It's just sex. It's not a big deal. We're not even doing anything serious." I couldn't believe her words. She lied to my face, told me I was crazy, and then spun some story about how I was paranoid, jealous, insecure. She called me obsessive, said I was ruining what we have over a stupid mistake she made during a moment of weakness. That was her defense. But I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I was furious, hurt, and confused all at once. How could she cheat on me with some kid's baseball coach? How could she lie so easily? I kept staring at the footage, replaying it over and over, trying to understand how I didn't see it coming sooner. The betrayal hit me hard. I mean, I loved her, I still loved her, but this was something else. I felt like I was drowning in a mess of emotions I couldn't control: anger, sadness, betrayal. It was like my whole world was crashing down, and I had no idea what the hell to do next. After I saw the footage and read those texts, everything changed. I couldn't sleep that night, just lying there with her betrayal pounding in my head. I kept asking myself, how many times had she lied to me? How long has this been going on? The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just some fling or a one-night mistake. It was happening consistently, behind my back, in that shitty little equipment shed where her training sessions with Mike supposedly took place. I couldn't wrap my head around how she managed to lie so convincingly. Her bitchy attitude, her quick retorts, her dismissiveness. She's always been good at twisting things around, making herself seem the victim, always spinning stories that make her look innocent. That's what she does. She's a damn expert at lying, and I was starting to wonder if I'd ever really known her at all. The worst part was trying to figure out what to do next. I felt like I was caught in some bad movie, one where the hero gets hit with a reveal he never saw coming. I didn't want to jump to conclusions without talking to her, but I also knew I couldn't ignore what I saw. So I waited. I decided I'd confront her face to face. I was angry and hurt, but I needed to hear her lie her way out of this, needed to see if she'd even try to deny it again. I knew the truth was in front of me, those videos, those texts, and I just wanted her to admit it to see if she'd own up or keep spinning her bullshit. One evening, after Ryan was in bed, I sat her down in the living room. Her eyes flickered with that same bitchy glare she always had, but I wasn't going to back down. I told her I knew everything about the texts, the footage, the late nights away from home, the lies. Her face twisted into a sneer and she started with her usual bullshit. "You're crazy," she said. "You're obsessing over nothing." She kept insisting it was just sex, a silly mistake, that she didn't mean for it to go this far. That she was tired of our routine, and somehow that gave her the right to cheat. She threw in a few tears, acting all hurt, claiming she was just confused, that she didn't want to hurt me but she couldn't help herself anymore. It was at that moment I realized she had no remorse. Her bitchiness was on full display and she was just trying to manipulate the situation. She kept lying, claiming she was just exploring, that it was nothing serious, and that I needed to relax or I'd push her away forever. I looked at her, feeling my blood boil, and I wanted to shake her until she finally told the truth. But she kept denying, kept spinning her web of lies, insisting she loved me, but she also loved Mike and that she was just confused. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her she was disgusting, that I couldn't believe I married a woman who'd cheat on me with some kid's coach in the equipment shed. The emotional blow was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry all at once. It's like I'd been punched in the gut, and then someone poured gasoline on the fire. I didn't know whether to cry or punch a wall. I just sat there staring at her, feeling a mixture of heartbreak and rage. I knew I had to make a decision, and fast. Do I forgive her? Do I fight for this marriage? Or do I throw it all away and walk? Right then, I wasn't sure what I could do. All I knew was that I never imagined my life turning into this. A story about betrayal, lies, and the kind of pain that cuts so deep you think you'll never recover. The next few days were a blur. I kept replaying everything in my head, her sneers, her lies, the videos, and I couldn't find a way to process it all. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman I loved turn into someone I barely recognized. That bitchy, manipulative side of her made me question everything. How much of our marriage was real? Did she ever truly love me? I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, angry at her for lying, and angry at the whole damn situation for ripping my world apart. I decided I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. I needed a plan. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without consequences. But I also knew I had to be smart. Confronting her again, accusing her outright, probably wouldn't help. She had a knack for twisting things, and I didn't want her to spin me into a corner. So I started gathering evidence. I went back to the security footage, downloaded all the videos, every sneaky moment she was in that shed, every touch, every kiss. I also kept a copy of her texts, just in case I needed them for anything. The more I looked at the pictures and videos, the more I realized how calculated she was. She planned those training sessions like some kind of secret rendezvous late at night behind my back. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act at home. She was still bitchy, still lying, but now she was also defensive, paranoid, and angry. I could tell she was getting suspicious that I was onto her, which only made her more aggressive. She started accusing me of stalking, controlling, and being paranoid, but I had enough. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me. I confronted her again, this time with all the evidence laid out. I told her I knew everything, that I wasn't going to be played anymore. That's when her true colors showed. She snapped at me, called me insecure, accused me of being jealous of her fun, and told me I was just insecure because I couldn't satisfy her anymore. Her reaction was so typical: deflect, deny, blame me for her mistakes. She kept saying she was stressed, bored, and wanted something different, as if that excused her from betraying her vows. I felt my blood boil. How can someone be so callous? How can she brush off what she did like it was nothing? I wanted to punch her to shake her and make her see how much she'd hurt me. But I kept my cool, knowing that if I lost control, I'd be no better than her. So I told her I was done talking until she owned up. I told her I'd be making some decisions about our future, and I needed her to think carefully about what she wanted because I wasn't sure I could forgive this. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling a strange mixture of rage and sadness. I kept thinking about Ryan, about how this would affect him, and about the life Emily had been hiding from me. It's one thing to find out your wife is cheating. It's another to realize she's been lying for months, sneaking off to have sex with our son's coach in a dirty, dark shed. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was too clear. My trust was shattered, and I knew I had to come to a decision. How do you rebuild a marriage after something like this? How do you even look at someone who's lied so easily and betrayed everything you believed in? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. That was the point I realized. My life was never going to be the same. The days that followed were some of the hardest I've ever experienced. I kept going over everything in my head, trying to make sense of how Emily could have done this to me, to Ryan. I felt like I'd been sucker punched so many times I didn't even know which way was up anymore. Every thought, every memory, now clouded with betrayal. I'd always believed we had a good marriage, that we were in it for the long haul. But after discovering her in the act, I started questioning everything. Her loyalty, her love, her very integrity. It was like the ground had shifted beneath my feet, and I was just trying not to fall. I knew I couldn't keep living in uncertainty, so I made a decision. I was going to confront her again, but this time I needed to be strategic. I set up a time to talk, alone in the living room. I told her I had something important to say, and I wanted her to listen. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk, like she already knew what I was going to say, and probably thought she could manipulate her way out of it once again. But I was done playing her games. I laid everything out, showed her the videos, the texts, everything I had gathered. I told her I knew she'd been cheating on me with Mike, that I'd seen her in the shed, touching him, kissing him. Her reaction was immediate. She tried to deny it, but her voice cracked and her eyes darted around like a kid caught with her hand in the cookie jar. She launched into her usual bullshit. "You're overreacting," she said. "It's just sex, for God's sake. It doesn't mean anything. I was just looking for excitement. I'm bored." That's when I snapped. I told her I wasn't interested in her excuses anymore, that I wasn't going to be made a fool of. I told her she was done lying to me, that I knew her real character now, that her sexcapades in that shed with her training were the last straw. I told her I was tired of her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulation, and her blatant disrespect. Her face got red, her voice raised, and she started crying, fake tears, of course. She kept insisting she loved me, that she was sorry, that she never meant to hurt me, but her words felt hollow. I saw her for what she really was, an unfaithful, selfish woman who only cared about herself. I could see the contempt in her eyes, the way she was trying to guilt me into forgiving her. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I needed space, that I was done talking for now, that I was going to think about everything, and she better be prepared for the consequences. That night I didn't sleep again. My mind was racing, battling between rage and heartbreak. I kept looking at Ryan's picture on my phone, his innocent face, his trusting eyes, and wondering what I'd do if I stayed. Could I forgive her? Could I rebuild what she'd shattered? Honestly, I didn't know. All I knew was that I'd never been so betrayed in my life. The woman I loved, the mother of my kid, had been sneaking around behind my back in that dark, dirty shed with his coach. I felt sick just thinking about it. I didn't know how to tell Ryan, or if I even should. All I knew was my whole world was falling apart, and I was the one left holding the pieces. Over the next couple of days, I kept to myself as much as possible. I couldn't face Emily without feeling this crushing mix of anger, disgust, and sadness. I knew I had to make some kind of decision, but part of me was still hoping she'd somehow come clean, own up, and maybe even try to fix this mess. But deep down, I knew that was unrealistic. She lied too much, played her game too well. The idea of trying to patch things up after this just seemed like a fantasy. She had crossed a line that I couldn't come back from. Meanwhile, I started talking to some friends, just a few close ones, trying to get perspective. I told them everything, how I found her cheating with Mike, the videos, the lies. Honestly, I was surprised how many of them said I should just walk away. They told me I deserved better, that no one should accept betrayal like that. I kept thinking about Ryan and how this was going to affect him. I didn't want him growing up thinking that cheating and lying were okay. If I stayed, what message would I be sending? That it's okay to lie, cheat, and betray the people who love you. That thought made me even angrier at Emily. One day, I decided I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself. I had to act. I sat her down again, this time with a calmer, more serious tone. I told her I was done with her lies, that I was seriously considering leaving. I said I needed her to understand how deeply she'd hurt me and Ryan, and that I wasn't interested in a half-hearted apology. I wanted her to own her actions. Her bitchy side flared up immediately. She started yelling, calling me controlling, jealous, insecure. She spun stories about how she was just exploring, how Mike was just a friend and she was bored and lonely. But I wasn't buying it. I told her I didn't want her explanations. I just wanted the truth, and I wanted her to face the consequences of what she'd done. That's when she got even more manipulative. She threw a tantrum, saying I was overreacting and that I was ruining her life. She accused me of not trusting her, of being paranoid. She said she loved me, but she also loved Mike and needed freedom. It was like she was trying to make me feel guilty for catching her, like I should be grateful she even admitted to some of it. But I saw right through her. That bitchy attitude, her lies, they were just her way of trying to keep control. I told her I was done with her games. I told her if she wanted to stay, she had to be honest for once, and that I needed some time to think about what's best for Ryan and me. By the end of that conversation, I knew I'd reached a breaking point. I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Walking away seemed like the only option. I didn't want Ryan to grow up thinking that cheating and lying were okay, but I also didn't want to be with someone who disrespected me that way. I started packing some of my clothes, thinking about a place to stay, maybe move out for a while. I wasn't sure if I'd leave forever or just take some time apart, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal anymore. My heart felt heavy, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. At least I finally had clarity. Truth, no matter how brutal, was better than living in her web of lies. The thing that hit me hardest was the realization that my trust is shattered, irreparably damaged. I don't know if I'll ever look at her the same way again. I told myself I had to protect Ryan first and foremost. Whatever I decide, I owe him honesty and integrity. But right now, I was just trying to survive the fallout of a betrayal so deep. It made me question everything I ever believed about love, loyalty, and marriage. In the days that followed, I moved out. That was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, but I knew I couldn't stay under the same roof with her. The thought of seeing her bitchy smirk or hearing her lies again made my stomach turn. I found a small apartment nearby, just enough space to breathe and clear my head. Ryan, thankfully, didn't fully grasp everything yet. He was just a kid, but I knew that someday he'd need to understand what his mother did. I promised myself I'd be honest with him when the time came, because he deserved the truth. Living apart was brutal. Every day was a mix of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. I no longer had to walk on eggshells or worry about her sneaky lies. Instead, I was left to pick up the pieces of my broken world. I watched her from a distance, knowing she was still trying to spin her stories, still trying to manipulate the situation, but I refused to let her. I blocked her number, stopped all contact, and spent more time with Ryan than ever before. I wanted to shield him from the chaos, to give him some sense of normalcy in the middle of all this mess. Through all of this, I learned some harsh lessons. Trust is fragile, so fragile that once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. I learned that people, even those we love, can be capable of betrayal so deep that it changes everything. But I also learned that sometimes, walking away is the only way to save what's left of yourself. I realized that I need to focus on healing, on finding a way to forgive, not necessarily her but myself for trusting her so blindly for so long. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe she'll try to come back, maybe she won't. Honestly, I'm not interested in her apologies or her manipulations anymore. What she did is a permanent scar, and I have to live with it. But I also know I'll be okay. I've got Ryan, and I'm going to make sure he grows up knowing what honesty and respect really mean. As for me, I'm taking it one day at a time, learning how to trust again, how to love myself, and how to move past the betrayal that nearly broke me. If there's one thing I've gained from all this, it's clarity. I see now that no relationship is worth sacrificing your self-respect. No matter how much you love someone, if they lie, cheat, and manipulate, it's better to walk away than to stay in the ruins of a broken marriage. I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar takes that to heart. Trust your instincts, listen to that voice inside, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Because at the end of the day, your happiness and integrity mean everything.